Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Please join me in standing for the invocation to be given by Pastor David Griffin. Thank you, David, for being here tonight.
Thank you for inviting me. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so very much for the opportunity to serve other people. I thank you for these civil servants. I thank you for those that are both employees as well as those that are elected officials. I pray that you would give them wisdom and discernment, and that they would be able to see clearly what it is that is best for this community. I thank you for the opportunity to stand freely and to proclaim freedom, proclaim faith. Thank you for the opportunity to serve this community. We pray that you would give us an ability to see as you see, an ability to help everyone in this community, regardless of where they're from, regardless of what their faith system is, regardless of what they believe, or even the decisions they made in the past, to know that they are cared for and that they were brought here for a reason. So we thank you for putting each of these people in this place for such a time as this. It is in Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Please join me standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Let me welcome council, staff, and members of the audience to the council meeting, regular council meeting for Monday, August 8, 2022. For the record, time is 7:02, and we have all 7 council members present, and we have quorum. First item on the agenda is announcements and acknowledgement. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.0415, council and staff may report on various items. Council, do you have any announcements or acknowledgements?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Finch?
just continue to appreciate our water department, knowing all the hours they put in to keep our system flowing. So be sure and pass on our thanks to them.
I echo that. Anyone else? Staff, do you have any announcements? Okay. Moving on to the next item, that's the public comments. This is the time members of the audience may come forward and speak to the council on any items other than personal or legal matters or items on the agenda. If you would like to come and speak to the council, you may do so at this time. No one is coming forward, so I'm going to close the public comments. Moving on to the consent agenda portion of the items. Council, we have item number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 on the consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove any of the items from the consent agenda? Okay, if not, can I have a motion to approve consent agenda item 5 through 11?
Motion to approve consent agenda items 5 through 11 as presented.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Freeman, second by Mr. Clark to approve consent agenda items 5 through 11. All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 7-0. Moving on to the public hearing portion of the agenda, item number 12. Hold a public hearing, discuss, consider, and act upon the first reading of ordinance 2022-23 granting a specific use permit for an accessory dwell unit on the property zone single family SF1 located generally at 521 East Strip Road. Previo, Philip. Good evening, Philip.
You know me? Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. The request before you tonight is for a property located at 529 East Strip Road, consisting of roughly 3 acres zoned SF1. The property includes an existing home built in 1999. The owner is requesting a special use permit to allow for the conversion of an existing 4-car detached garage to an accessory dwelling unit for use by family or caretaker. The applicant is proposing to convert the detached garage to an accessory dwelling unit behind the main home on the property. The exterior siding of the detached garage is brick with a roof of composite shingles matching the primary residence. Attached to the access to the detached garage in the past and currently is with a shared drive that is split between the applicant's property, 529 East Trip, and the neighbor 531 East Trip Road. The drive is used to access the attached garages for both 529 and 531 East Trip, as well as the detached garage involved in this case, 529 East Trip. The driveway extends behind the rear facade of the primary residence where the 4-car detached garage currently sits. The applicant has provided a site plan showing access to the garage with the expansion of the existing driveway by 6 feet. This 6 feet is proposed as flex base, a crushed rock material that is allowed for driveways past 50 feet from the town's right-of-way on lots over 2 acres in size. The UDO states that accessory dwelling units must be constructed to the rear and separate from the principal residence, are to be constructed from the same material as the primary structure, be set back 10 feet from the side property lines, occupy 10% or less of the rear yard, be 2 or more acres in size, and wall height must not exceed 15 feet. The proposed accessory dwelling unit meets each of these requirements. The Planning and Zoning Commission met on July 20th, 2022, and voted to recommend denial of this case. Staff distributed letters to each property owner within 200 feet of the subject property and received 6 formal responses in favor and 2 in opposition. The UDO states that if 20% or more of the land within the 200-foot buffer oppose the zoning request, then 3/4 vote is required at the town council level to pass the ordinance. This 20% is determined by the percentage of the land in the notification boundary and not the number of people in opposition. With the 2 properties combined, roughly 38% of the land within this 200-foot buffer is made up of property owners in opposition, requiring a 3/4 vote from town council for approval. Staff recommends approval.
Philip, thank you very much. Is the applicant here tonight? Would you like to come forward and speak to the council? Good evening. Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, good evening. My name is Cameron Hawes. My address is 529 East Trip Road, Sunnyvale, Texas. Thank you for having me.
Good evening. Would you like to talk about your application, why you need it, that type of thing?
Yes, so prior to purchasing the property, we actually met with planning and zoning and made sure that it met all of the requirements for the special use designation, because this was the entire reason for purchasing it, was so that our parents could move here, be closer to us, and be a part of, our grandkids' life. So we kind of went through all the steps and have tried to do everything we can to make sure that we meet all of the guidelines. And at this point, with the initial denial, we got the site plan to add to expand the driveway so that we do meet all of the requirements. And so we're really hoping that we have done that.
So you said you met with the planning and zoning commissioner, got approved?
No. So, Brenda McDonald, town attorney. So at the Planning and Zoning Commission, the application stated that the driveway to the accessory dwelling unit was half on the neighbor's property. And the neighbor would not give permission for a permanent access easement, which you have to have an accessory dwelling unit. You have to have permanent access to a public street. As a result, the Planning and Zoning Commission felt like they couldn't recommend approval. Subsequent to the P&Z recommendation of denial, the applicant revised the site plan to show the driveway completely on his property. And so now it meets all requirements necessary for the accessory dwelling unit.
So did the applicant literally move to the left, I guess?
Yes. But I'll let him speak to that.
Yes, that's pretty much it. Remove a fence and added the flex space in order to create enough driveway space that we have it all on our land.
Yeah. And I will say, to the applicant's credit, they are trying to do it correctly. They actually, that property conveyed the permanent access easement to the property next door, who wouldn't in turn convey because the driveway was half on each side, wouldn't convey the permanent access easement to this property. And that property is also one that is in opposition. But you gave them a permanent access easement for their driveway.
Anything else, sir? I may ask you to come back to answer any questions. Now you may be seated.
Thank you.
At this time, let me open for public comments. If anyone from the members of the audience would like to come forward and speak to the council on item number 12, you may do so at this time. Yes, sir. Just go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please.
Kenneth Reed, 208 Molina. My concern is, I understand that they're trying to get their parents closer and stuff, but in my neighborhood, I've got a home in my neighborhood. I've been here since 2012. They took their attached garage, converted it to a living quarter, built a detached garage. Now, over the years, they've converted that to a living quarter. Now they poured another slab in the backyard. And I know it's got plumbing and electrical run to it. It's going to turn into a living quarter. The way I see it is that's not going to be good for resale value of the homes around it whenever you've got 15 cars parked in a single car driveway over there that only holds 4 or 5. I understand this has got a little bit more property, but I think if you sent a message that you can help people come and build another structure on your property, what's going to keep that person from dividing that property and then selling it back on the back of that, trying to sell it as another piece of property totally? Because unfortunately, our parents passed away, our mother-in-laws passed away, all those structures that we built for them, they're going to be here, and it's going to affect the rest of the citizens here in the city.
If you're talking, I know it's not a discussion, but if you're talking about the subdividing, they have to come back to council again for a different application. I'm talking about the 529 Philip Road, not the Molina one.
Right. But now, is this going to have a separate water meter, separate sewer? Is it going to have a separate electric meter? Is
Do
it
you
all
want to
gonna be
comment?
tied together?
Brian, do you want to talk about that? Water meter?
Mr. Creed?
Yes,
David?
sir. As a completely separate residential unit. I can't speak to the, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay, as a separate residential unit, it would need another water meter. I can't speak to the electrical.
And sewer?
Sewer can be shared on the same property.
Okay. So that doesn't create a problem down the road if somebody tries to divide this up and sell the back half? I know you're going to have the 2 people that own this common driveway.
Mhm.
Now you'll have a 3rd person back here that's going to be on that same driveway as well.
Well, I can't
Yeah,
speak to that.
So, so first of all, if you would address your
Okay.
comments to the council. Secondly, in this particular situation, a lot could not be created that would meet the minimum requirements for the zoning district that it's in. So it couldn't happen.
So this still falls underneath a single-family dwelling property or no?
It's an SF1 zoning. I think the application here is to create an ADU, attached dwelling unit is the application here.
A separate
But I think
dwelling?
still SF1 zoning category.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Okay.
Anyone else like to come forward and speak to the council? Good evening, ma'am. Would you go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Stacy Carter. I live at 531 East Trick Road.
Good evening.
I am also here on behalf of 527 East Trick Road. So sorry, I've been sick. They are my parents. We are Legacy Sunnyvale. We've been active in the community and I've been raised here. So I wanted to say thank you for listening to me, Honorable Mayor, esteemed council. I am in opposition as well as my parents are in opposition.
Ma'am, it's hard to hear some of the older people. If you
Is
don't
that
mind, yeah,
better?
you can pick it up if you are. Okay, yeah, that should work. Yeah.
Okay. I am, as well as the My parents at 527 opposed to the detached garage becoming an accessory dwelling. It was originally approved for just a weight room and a four-car separate garage, which at that time, it wasn't an issue as far as traffic down the driveway. The driveway has been in effect since 1974. The easement for the other half of Lot 4 has also been in play since the 70s. So this is not anything new that has taken place on that drive. The drive was not constructed for multiple families to use. My house sits back 400 feet off the road. So does the other property on the other side. And by doing that, now this, if it's made to a residence, will be right beside my home, right down the side of my parents' bedrooms on their homes too, as well as right at our backyards. These lots are narrow because they're only 100 feet wide, which are non-conforming, but that's the way they were back when these properties were broken up. The building as a residence now or in the future is just not conducive with the peace and tranquility that we currently have on those lots because of the increased traffic, future use, which is a concern of mine too, one of these days. These are our final homes. So, we will not be going anywhere, even if the middle property does change hands one of these days. And new residents are used in those properties. Also, the property is known to have septic issues. So again, the septic issues from the previous owner does cause flooding over on our properties too. So I am concerned with the additional use of multiple families on that piece of property.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Just to make sure, when Brian, not right now. When we come back, I want you to address the septic issue later, not right now. But I just want to make sure that what I heard is when it came to the PNC, the plan was to use your half of the road to make that 10 feet or 11 feet. Now what I'm hearing is since the PNC rejected it, they are moving that entirely onto their property. I just want to make sure that you recognize that fact.
Yes, half the drive does belong to my property. The other half of the poor driveway, current driveway that's there, is on the other lot. They have added to that, but they still only have one full entrance off of Trip Road.
Sure, one full entrance, but the plan presented to PNC, the driveway was half of your property and half there. What I heard is now, since then, they moved that. Now they are proposing to place the driveway entirely on their properties. What I heard. As long as you recognize that fact, I just want to make sure you recognize that change.
That is true, but the half of the driveway that I have the easement on is part of that 10-foot.
Sure, still their property, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the easement, but they have the property.
Correct. And it goes the whole depth from the street to the very back, which is 1,290 feet.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Anyone else would like to come forward and speak to the council on this topic? Okay. If no one else is coming forward on item number 12, I am going to close the public comments on this topic. Okay, moving on. I can move on here. Sorry, council. So Brian, would you mind addressing the septic issue?
Okay,
What's
so
in
the
address?
septic in Sunnyvale is under the authority of Dallas County.
Okay.
They would decide whether or not their facilities would be big enough to support full-time residency in there, not Sunnyvale. So we don't have the authority to designate that.
But what about the resident mentioned that there are instances where the septic overflows and get onto their property? Do we have jurisdiction over that?
We do not, but we can certainly refer that to Dallas County. If they would like to make a complaint. I would certainly take that
If
up.
any such instances we can.
Absolutely.
And they will take action.
Hopefully, yes, sir.
Council, what questions do you have on this topic? Mr. Finch?
So I'm just trying to clarify from where it was to where it is. And so what I heard you say is that when it was first presented to P&Z, there was a roadway issue, an access issue. They were having to share some roadway. Since that time, they have come back and submitted a new site plan that takes care of that issue. Outside of that, the only way, I guess my question is, the only way we could, that this is allowed is through the special use because it's an accessory dwelling. Is that
That's correct. And your previous statement is also accurate. So an SUP is in essence a zoning application. But what the ordinance, the big zoning ordinance contemplates is some uses are appropriate uses under certain circumstances in a district. And so the SUP isn't fundamentally to talk about whether the use is okay. It's, are there locational things or operational things about what's being proposed that in this circumstance would make it inappropriate?
Thank you. To address some of the concerns that have been brought up by some other citizens. So just to, I think I know this, but just to clarify, in order for this property really, under current ordinance, this property could not be subdivided to where it could become a separate rental. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's all for now. Thank you.
Just need to bring one more. I heard comments about, right, concerns, I should say, about traffic increased. That road is just to enter that property, correct? There's what additional, understand the traffic to the second house, obviously, if the council approve the attached dwelling unit, then there's going to be definitely increased traffic to the second house. I get that. But other than that, do you anticipate increased traffic? Because I want to be respectful to that. 531 is the one on the right side. 527 seems to be on the other side. So probably, at least in my mind, it's less of an impact. Can you talk about what additional traffic you anticipate?
So the only traffic that I would think of would be for their personal use. If they want to have friends over, that may be something. But as far as on the driveway, that's all that's going to be there. What do you?
Can I have the applicant back here, sir? Can you talk about the concern from the neighbor about what additional traffic do you anticipate to that property?
Honestly, very little. I mean, it's my mother and father-in-law who have one vehicle. It used to be a 4-car garage. I imagine that people filled it up with cars previously, and that's not going to be the case now. I just don't see there being much traffic, and again, especially the fact that with the widened driveway, it's completely on our property.
So let me ask you. So I know it's kind of skinny, right? It's not like wide. I know that's why it's not just another width of normal width is, but it's what it is, right? The land is what land is, right? Is it fair to say that if they have hosts or they have guests, you have enough? Because I heard somewhere, I thought I read, maybe somebody mentioned to me that when guests come, they end up in parking on the neighbor's property. Is that, is there a need? You see a need for?
I don't think so. There's a large turnaround out front that has plenty of room for parking. There's, worst case scenario, a basketball court in the backyard that they could park on. not functional. But, there's 3 acres of parking, so I don't think we need to go on it.
Never mind, say it for a second. Hey, Brenda, let me ask you a question. So, understand the applicant said it is for the pen. I get that. At some point of time, 20, 30 years from now, some number of years down, can that be used by another family member?
Sure,
Guests?
sure. It could be a guest house.
All right, thanks. So, do you have okay, go ahead.
Okay, no.
No, go ahead. Do you have any yeah, Mr. You have a question for the applicant?
I'm sorry, no.
Anyone ask question for the applicant? I may ask you to come back again, sir, if you don't mind. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Mr. Freeman, go. Come back to a second.
All right. You said something earlier, Brendan. I want to get some clarification. Special use permit so this got denied because of the driveway, but you said something about would the use of it be a concern, but the use of what you're trying to do is something we don't agree with? Would they have the right to say no to that?
They would. They did not in this case.
Okay. So they didn't have, so what their issue was just that. Second off, at any point, you talk about another family member moving in, would this be available to be made a rental property?
Well, I actually just anticipated your question. I was pulling up the ordinance.
By family or caretakers. It cannot be sublent or anything.
Thank you.
Mr. Finch?
So I'm wondering, considering that we have different information than P and Z had, in a question about appropriateness of direction of the case, is there any appropriateness for them to rehear this case because of the change?
So if the planning and zoning recommendation was the only reason for the 3/4 vote requirement, I would say perhaps yes. But because you have 2 property owners who comprise 38% of the notice area, there's going to be a 3/4 vote requirement anyway, whether it goes back to P&Z or not. And several of the staff members were there. I think they can offer you their thoughts on the commission's discussion. My view was that, but for the driveway issue, which they tried to solve sort of during the meeting from the dais. So they were interested in solving the problem. And I believe they would have if they could have. But you can ask other staff members who were there as well.
Sounds like that was the majority of the discussion was the driveway issue. And it sounds like we've addressed some of the other issues of potential rental property and subdividing the property. So,
Ms. Brenda, let me ask you. You're the legal counsel in that P&Z? Were you the legal counsel?
I was.
Okay. Did you make any recommendation to the planning and zoning?
I did. I advised them that without the permanent access, that I didn't think that they had the ability to recommend approval.
I just want to confirm because I did speak with the P&Z chair this afternoon, just to understand their concern because I saw staff recommending one, P&Z rejecting it, and I heard their concern was the driveway. And they did in fact tell me, the applicant moved to the left. And I didn't read in the material, I did not get the impression that the applicant moved it. So that's why I was talking to Philip earlier.
Right.
Thank you for clarifying it. Okay, council, are there additional discussions or questions? Mr. Allen?
Mayor, thank you. I don't know if it makes any difference, but do we have a plat or a drawing of what the new driveway is going to look like?
It's in your packet. You want me to get you a page number? It's going to be right after that one, after the plat. There it is. There are a lot of trees. You're not going to be able to see very much.
So council, just for your information, and Philip explained this and Brenda confirmed it, because the number of no's make up more than 30%, more than 20%, council, if council choose to approve this one, needs to have a 3/4, 75% votes. So the math in my mind is 3/4 of 7 is 5.25. That means unless 6 of you approve it, this motion will not pass. 6 of the 7 must approve in order for this. Just make sure the math is clear to everybody. Okay, Mr. Aaron, did you look up what you need to look up? Okay, council, are there any additional discussions or questions for staff, applicants, or attorney?
Right, I do have one more
Mr. Clark?
question
Yes, sir.
about the driveway. Will the driveway just be extended one lane on the left side? So it'd be basically, or it would just, 8 more feet on the left side?
So they are extending 6 more feet on the left side of the driveway, past that U circle drive there. So they would access from that left driveway entrance and then go to
Okay.
Yeah. So the dotted line is in this picture, it's a south in this picture, right? That half 5 foot is already theirs, and they are adding to that the shaded or the
Yes, sir.
hatched area, right? So that makes it 5 plus 5, 10,
They're adding 6 feet.
5 plus 6, 11 feet. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And what's the width of the road required and the road finish required for, let's say, a fire truck or something heavy vehicle? What's the finish required?
So minimum code from what our building official said before he had left was 10 feet.
So minimum 10. How about are they concreting that road, or do they, what type of finish again?
So it is flex base. It's a crushed rock material that is approved within the UDO for properties over 2 acres past 50 feet from right of way.
So that satisfies the safety emergency vehicle approach that happened.
Yes, sir.
Council, are there any, it sounds like staff is recommending this one. Council, are there any additional questions or discussions on the stuff? Brenda, do you have anything else to say? Philip, you have anything? Brian? Okay, anyone else? Okay, if nothing, I call for a motion, right, number 12.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Eldridge to approve item number 12 was presented.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Finch. Motion made by Mr. Eldridge, second by Mr. Finch. Everyone heard the motion. Are there additional discussions? If none, all in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 7-0. Thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, item number 13. Hold a public hearing, discuss and consider and act upon the first reading of ordinance 2022-24 granting a specific use permit for the sale, rental, storage, and repair of heavy machinery with an alternative outside display layout on the property zone industrial located generally at 353 Long Creek Road. That'd be Mr. Philip.
Yes, sir.
Good
The
evening.
request before you tonight is for an approximately 4.75 acre property located at 353 Long Creek Road. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow for the sale, rental, storage, and repair of heavy machinery with an alternative outside display layout. This property includes an existing warehouse and manufacturing facility that is 24,000 square feet in size, built in 2003. Applicant plans to convert the existing 24,000 square foot building to a sales, rental, storage, and repair facility for heavy machinery. The new use would use roughly 6,600 square feet of facility for office space and the remaining 17,400 square feet for the storage and repair of these of this heavy machinery. Outside of this building will be the staging area of equipment for rent. If approved by council, there will be minimum exterior changes to the building. The applicant is proposing the addition of a canopy on the north side of the building to house a portable wash rack system, as well as the addition of 5 overhead doors to the exterior of the building. Since the applicant is requesting a use that requires a SUP, the site must be brought into compliance with the current development standards. Where applicable, the applicant is screening the chain link fence with eastern red cedars. The UDO requires that chain link fencing is completely screened from adjacent public areas and properties by either structure or solid landscaping. This screening will be checked at the time of building final for compliance. This use includes the indoor and outdoor display, sales, rental, storage, and repair and servicing of heavy machinery. The special use permit allows for the applicant to present an alternative outside display method not meeting the current requirements of the UDO. Outside display, as it is allowed now, is limited to areas within 30 feet of the main building and not to exceed 50% of the linear frontage of the building. Due to the nature of this use, large rental equipment on display, more than the space allowed currently by the UDO is being requested by the applicant. The applicant is requesting to pave and display on all areas behind the front facade of the building, to the back of the property. The display area will be required to provide circulation for both the applicant's equipment as well as the fire department. As the property sits today, there are 36 existing parking spaces. The current Unified Development Ordinance requires that 41 spaces be provided for the proposed use. The applicant has provided 5 new parking spaces to be added to the site to meet this requirement. These new spots will be the size as required by the UDO. The town has sent neighboring property owners within 200 feet of the site notice letters of the zoning change with a description of the proposal. 1 letter was returned in opposition. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Philip. Appreciate you. Let me open up for public comments. If there's anyone from the members of the audience who would like to come forward and speak to the council on item number 13, you may do so at this time. Good hearing, sir. Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Troy, forget it. Address is 5665 Southeast Loop 410 San Antonio, Texas. So I'd just like to describe the model that we're going to be supplying at this location, what the business model is, and then answer any questions in regards to the actual operations of the facility.
Gotcha.
We are intending to use this as a rental facility for heavy or for industrial equipment. Industrial equipment meaning emergency generators, emergency air compressors, as well as emergency HVAC air conditioning. The volume of traffic that we're going to be experiencing is pretty low. We anticipate that this is going to be a daily usage of 5 to 8 vehicles or trucks a day, with the caveat being in any kind of natural disaster, any kind of emergency, at which point basically all hands on deck, we will mobilize and send all of our units out to wherever the need is. Other than that, our business model, because of the nature of it, is a low volume business model with large quantities. Other than that, I'm here to answer any questions that the council may have.
Council, any question for the applicant?
Yeah, I have some questions. So I'm looking at okay, you can see the picture. I'm looking at the picture here. You say that there's certain rules about displaying actual inventory, and you're going to be basically putting that out. You said they're air conditioning units. Like, what size are we talking? Are these smaller? I guess my question is this. I mean, you're going to have to put this fence up to basically hide whatever. Is that going to cover it? I mean, are we going to be able to see this? Or are you going to be parking these in front? Like, what does that sound? What does that look like?
So the intent of the display is not necessarily to display to the public. Our clientele is going to be more of a specialized clientele who either has a relationship with us or has a known interest in us. So the display is really them coming into our yard and seeing the items within our yard. Our intent is not to actually display. We actually don't want this visible from either Collins or from Long Street. So there will be screening with cedar elms all the way around. I believe what is required at the time of CFO is 10 feet minimum on the cedars, and then a full screening along both the north and the east portion of the facility.
So how tall are this equipment? You said 10 feet. How tall are these products?
So this equipment is basically trailer mounted. So the largest piece of equipment, which is going to be a 53-foot trailer long and 13 feet high.
13 feet high.
13
So
feet.
anything, so how high is the screening requirement?
So at the time of planting, they have to be at least 10 feet. The first day that we plant them, it must be 10 feet.
Correct.
Council, any questions for the applicant?
I do.
Mr. Clark, yes, sir?
And what's the product? HVAC units, but can you describe a little more?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are trailer mounted generators, emergency generators for backup emergency power, air compressors, and air conditioning. Every unit also has to have a generator. So if it's not a generator by itself, it's a combination of air compressor with a generator that's all trailer mounted. This is basically used, for example, if a hospital goes down and they need backup generators or backup air conditioning, they deploy these units to supply that hospital or that school or whatever it might be with power with air conditioning temporary.
Is it sale or rental or both? Is it sale? Is selling product or only rental?
These are all rentals.
So what's the tax benefit for us? This one? Do we have any?
Yes, so there's inventory tax. There is property tax. There's not sales tax, but there is inventory tax.
Gotcha, thanks. Council, additional question for the applicant. So I'm going to ask you one favor, if you don't mind. I didn't catch your name. There is a card. Rachel may have it, if you don't mind. If you can fill that up with your address and name for our workers, please.
Yes, sir.
Please take a seat. We may ask you to come back again to answer additional questions. Are there anyone else from the audience who would like to come forward and speak to the public comments? Council, what question do you have? Mr. Freeman?
The only question that I have is I know that we have to add parking spots to meet UDO requirements. However, it sounds like they're going to be parking trailers covering up those parking spots.
So the outside display area will not cover the required parking.
Okay, so
How many display units are we talking about?
How big of a display?
How many?
Oh. So the property
Maybe-
is.
Maybe I can ask
I
the
don't know.
applicant.
Yeah.
Sorry, Philip, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No worries.
I just can generally look at your direction, that's all. Thanks for back here again.
No problem. So our fleet as of right now that we're looking at is about 30 to 45 units. They're going to vary in size between 20 feet long length to the 53 feet that we discussed, which is our largest. The larger ones are going to be few and far between because they're not as readily necessary as some of the small units.
So we can anticipate that, did you say 30 displays?
30.
How big is the look at the property size?
It's 4.75 acres.
If you want to know what a 53-foot trailer would look next to it.
Mayor, I
Yes,
would
sir.
like to make a correction. If they are renting the equipment, I believe you do collect sales tax. If they're selling the equipment, you collect inventory tax.
We will not have any sales at this facility.
So this is purely a rental facility. You would collect sales tax.
We will.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Plus inventory, right?
The inventory is if they're
Property.
for sale. It would be business personal property though.
Thanks. Yes, sir. Good for now. You have more questions?
What's currently in this building now?
So beach sheet metal.
Are they
Yes,
operational? Are they are they open? Do they do business there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, are there additional comments? So anybody else have questions or comments? Mr. Finch. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I personally have just make a statement, no issue with this because look next door. I mean, we have exactly the same equipment next door that's moving down that road. Now, the traffic is low, even though it's going to exceed the height of screening. So does next door, and so I see it's a good business move for us, and I think we're actually going to, even though that business is moving, I think we're going to retain it in Sunnyvale anyway. So it's kind of a win-win for us. So.
Mr. Allen, your comments? Sir?
I was going to echo the same thing.
Give you-
I think it is. I was going to echo the same thing that Ryan mentioned. That looks like it's the same use type as it is next door. I was going to ask one question just for clarity. The screening up has in part to do with the 12-foot cap that we have in our town, and it's going to be over that, so they have to screen above that. Is that right? Did I miss something somewhere? That's not your look said the answer. So
I'm not familiar.
that's okay. He mentioned a while ago, somebody mentioned going up to 13 foot. I thought we had a 12-foot visibility restriction. And I thought maybe that was in part due to the screening. Disregard. Don't worry about it. It's okay. I've got it. But I agree with Councilman Finch that it looks like it's a good purpose for our town and a good purpose for that land there.
Okay, are there additional questions or discussions? So we have one resident or one of the neighbors opposed this one. I don't think he sent an email, and that person, his medical plaza is on the east side of Collins Road, correct? Or east to the west side? Can you point out?
It would be the west side of Collins Road. If you see right above Highway 352 as marked on that map there, right above the H, that portion where the O'Reillys went in and they subdivided that property into 3 separate lots. So you see right at the corner of Wheatfield and Highway 352 is where O'Reilly's is. Just south of that, right at the corner of Wheatfield is the property that was opposed.
So what about the medical complex? Can you point that out? The medical complex.
So that is going to be, it is not built yet. They have gotten site plan approval.
Where is that again? Can you point that out here? Just above the H? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure that we note that for records that there is somebody opposed this application. Council, other additional discussions? Okay. If there are none, I call for a motion on item number 13.
I'll make a motion to approve item number 13 as presented.
Motion made by Mr. Allen to approve item number 13 as presented.
Second.
Second by Mr. Finch. Everyone heard the motion. The additional discussions. If not, all in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 7-0. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. So council again, item number 12 and 13 first reading. So they will be back on the consent agenda possibly in the next council meeting. You always have the option to remove them from the consent agenda and discuss it further. Thank you, applicant. Thanks. Yes, sir. Moving on to item number discussion and action item portion of the agenda, item number 14. Discuss, consider, and act upon resolution 2022-16, setting a maximum proposed property tax rate that will not exceed the motor approval tax rate for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2022 and ending September 30th, 2023, and calling a public hearing on the proposed tax rate to be held on September 12, 2022. Ms. Hopkins, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The slide that you see there before you is the calculation of the various rates that you need to complete this resolution 2216. The voter approval rate was calculated at 0.504255. The de minimis rate was calculated at 0.483212. The no new revenue rate was calculated at 0.428585. The voter approval rate is the highest rate the town of Sunnyvale may adopt without holding an election to seek voter approval of that rate. The de minimis rate is the rate equal to the sum of the no new revenue maintenance and operation rate for the town of Sunnyvale, calculated to be the rate that will raise $500,000 and the current debt rate for the taxing unit. The no new revenue rate is the tax rate for 2022 tax year that will raise the same amount of property tax revenue for the town of Sunnyvale from the same properties in both the 2021 tax year and the 2022 tax year. The resolution before you is indicating that you will not adopt a rate that is higher than the voter approval rate, and it is asking for you to decide what your proposed rate will be as part of this resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. Let me open for public comments. If there's anyone from the members of the audience who would like to come forward and speak to the council, right number 14, you may do so at this time. No one is coming forward, so I'm going to close the public comments council. It's time for discussions and comments. Mr. Freeman?
Yeah, I know that historically, as we've gone through this, we've kind of gone with the voter approval rate at this juncture, just so that's the highest rate set, and we can't go any higher, but we can go lower. However, I want to say that in years past, when we've done this, it's because we haven't had our final numbers in when we've come to this point. And I think that the rate that is being asked for by staff, I think is actually a good starting point this year. I don't think we need to go all the way up to the voter approval rate.
Are there additional discussions? Mr. Finch?
I tend to agree. Just one question of clarification that I didn't ask earlier is, if we go with the lower rate, are we confined for future rate adjustments moving forward?
Yes, sir, Councilman Finch. So I think Councilman Freeman's point is well taken. If you were to adopt tonight by resolution the voter approved rate, you have the ability to go down between now and budget approval in September, and the date at which in September you actually have to approve your final tax rate. If you go ahead and adopt by resolution the proposed rate tonight, that is your new ceiling at the 45.3 for the upcoming budget year. So should council want to go ahead and look at funding additional capital projects, which may require additional debt rate, we would have to lower the maintenance and operation rate to stay within the 45.3. So yes, you're setting the ceiling. So if the council wants to continue with past tradition and increase that to the voter approval rate, at this point, as town manager is required by charter, I have to submit a budget to you all. And I feel very confident that the 453 rate will fund both capital and some operational needs. But if you would like that additional flexibility as we go through those discussions in the next meetings.
Thank you. And just to clarify, one additional thing, this would not lock us in for future years. It needs to be for the current budget year.
Correct, for the proposed budget. That is correct.
I'm a little hesitant until we know all of our numbers to adopt a lower rate without that flexibility, knowing the capital projects we have. So that's just me personally. I mean, I want to keep the rate as low as possible, but I also know we have responsibility to provide infrastructure. We hear a lot about it. So I'm a little nervous until we know those details to set the lower rate. That's
absolutely. And again, staff would be supportive of that.
Answer your question, Mr. Finch. Are there additional questions or discussions on this topic? Mr. Allen?
Mayor, Jeff, do you know what the difference in the dollars between, and I'm not sure if we're calculating on $350,000 or $400,000 when we do our estimates, the difference between the voter approval and the de minimis rate annually? Do we know what the difference of that is, dollar-wise?
in terms of the amount of revenue, new revenue would
The
generate?
amount of cost per home.
Oh, the cost per home. So I believe in your packet, Liz, and Liz can take this one from here, but I believe in your packet it also has the average home value increased from our July budget retreat. Last year's number was 406,000 and a little bit over that. And I believe the new amount is 445. Is that correct, Liz?
Yes, that is in your Exhibit A. Second page of Exhibit A. It looks like it's page 7 of the agenda. The other thing to know, you're going to take a record vote on this rate, just for clarity, and that Exhibit A, second page, will now need to be recalculated at that higher tax rate. So just for clarity on it, make sure you're aware of that.
Say that one more time, Ms. Liz.
Page 2 of your Exhibit A, it says your taxes owed under any of the rates mentioned above can be calculated as follows. And then it asks for a record vote. And then it says the following table compares the tax imposed on the average resident homestead by the town of Sunnyvale last year to the taxes proposed to be imposed on the average resident homestead by the town of Sunnyvale this year. So it gives them the comparison of the actual dollar amount and percentage increase your proposed rate will have on the average homestead in Sunnyvale.
I think Mr. Allen's question, maybe I don't want to speak for him. I think what is the tax rate impact to citizens, an average home value, if you go from 0.453 to 0.4832? Is that your question, Mr. Allen?
Well, as I did the math, I didn't want to see what my math was. I was hoping somebody else would have the answer in case I messed that up.
You have the answer, right?
I think it did.
Are there additional discussions? Yeah. It's
Right, so it's $9 a year that we're talking about.
Maybe I missed the math at the $9.
Okay, are there additional discussions?
And I'll just add, going on what we've done the past few years, at least that I've been on, at this stage, we've taken the higher rate just to set the ceiling. And I don't think we've ever gone there. And, that's a discussion for another council member or council meeting, but we've gone with the, not to exceed the voter approved tax rate. So I think that seems to be, continue that precedence and go with that number at this stage and then work on our number. I think, going with what we've discussed before in our meetings.
Okay. Any other discussions? Liz, anything else you want to add, ma'am?
No, sir. Thank you.
Jones, you have anything else you want
The
to add?
only thing is I will kind of circle back. In the past, when we had done that, it's because I don't think we were doing this before certified numbers came in. There was always a little bit of wiggle room because we didn't know what the actual, what the actual number was going to come in at. So again, I'm willing to go either way on this. However, I think that this circumstance is a little different, being that we have certified numbers at this point.
Jeff, anything else? Ms. Brenda?
The only thing I would say is that if you want to consider any tax notes before you adopt the budget, that would affect the overall tax rate. So to accommodate that, you'd have to reduce your O&M portion of a total tax rate if you go with the town manager's proposal at this point.
Right. And does that need to be addressed now, tonight?
Yes,
that we
once you
propose?
set your maximum, you can't go over it. So if there was discussion about setting the proposed tax rate tonight, I would caution you that anything that you do after this date would require reduction in the O&M rate. If you decide you want to do a project, then something else would have to be reduced.
That's if we adopted the lower rate.
Yes, but at the voter approval rate, you have that flexibility to do
Right.
some of the things that you've discussed
Right.
without changing the overall budget presented by the town
But
manager.
we could still go back and adopt a lower rate on
Sure,
the final
absolutely.
and still make those changes with INS and M&O.
A lot of communities do that.
I think we're just wanting to make sure we
Well, I
saw
was
that.
talking to Councilman Freeman's comment.
Apologize.
I know we've got the second half of that coming up here shortly. And there's no delays that would be present by starting with the higher and then moving to the lower at a later time.
That's what Freeman said. It was nice to have the town manager come in and say, hey, you don't have to go to the max level if you don't want to. So we had some flexibility in that discussion. So I appreciate that. Even though we may still need to do the voter approval, I appreciate the staff saying, hey, stay within this budget for our town. So I appreciate that, town manager.
Thank you, Councilman Allen. And Mayor and Council also, we do have our financial advisor here tonight. Eric is in the audience if you do have any questions related to debt rate and debt issuance. We have taken as a staff, the finance team, our financial advisor and staff have been taking the feedback we received at the July budget workshop and looking at our capital improvement plans, the funding or lack of funding for certain phases, and what would be an appropriate debt instrument, particularly for like the DMAIC road rehab projects. And so that's kind of how we've formulated, at least at this point, our tax rate based on using the most appropriate debt tool for a short-term instrument for those types of projects. But and Eric is here too if you have any questions. He's in the back. I couldn't see him, but if he wants to add anything to what we've already discussed.
Eric, you are here anyway. You're looking nice. Come on.
Good evening, Mayor.
You have a presence. Yep. Did you want to state your name and address?
Yes, Eric Mahal, 323 Lakeside Trail resident.
Thank you.
We serve as financial advisor to the town. No matter what rate the council goes with this evening, it will be made up of M&O and INS. And to justify the INS rate, there'll be some work before the actual tax rate set. The town has the ability to issue some form of legal debt instrument to support that INS tax rate. And tax notes is one of the legal debt instruments you have access to. We preliminarily discussed a short-term tax note being paid within 2 years. By law, you have within 7 years to repay tax notes. But in this case, there is the ability to issue tax notes as long as those tax notes are approved prior to the tax rate being set. So you, council would have the ability between now and the date the tax rate to be set to determine what the INS tax rate would be within the total rate.
So what do the council decide? You will work with the staff to figure out what's the tax note should be.
Yes, sir.
And with the margin, right?
Yes, sir. We need probably 3 weeks heads up. To determine the size of it. Those will be part of the discussion from the company. So.
Yeah.
But the item tonight, whatever rate is suggested, but it's a not to exceed amount, we can work within that.
We can go with that upper limit then. As we whittle down, once we know the requested projects and priorities and the strategic mission activities, you could adjust the numbers.
The debt rate, we can adjust it up and down, keep it the same, however council would like.
So you'll be okay with the time limit, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, what are the time? You have enough time? Council, question for Eric? Thank you, Eric. Okay, are there additional discussions or questions on this topic? Okay, if none, I call for a motion. Again, this is to set the resolution. I think record vote, right? Got everybody. So somebody make a motion, another person second it. After that, we had a record vote. Means I'll start with the left, with the Finch. I'll go with that, and everybody has to vote. All right, with that, can I have a motion with respect to item number 14, please?
I'll make a motion for approving the tax rate not to exceed the voter approval rate of 0.0504255 per $100.
Motion made by Mr. Clark to approve resolution 2022-16 with a maximum proposed property tax rate that will not exceed 0.504255 per $100. Did I get that right? Such a motion?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eldridge. Motion made by Mr. Clark, second by Eldridge. Everyone heard the motion. Are there additional discussions? Okay, I'm going to start from the left. Mr. Finch, your vote, sir?
Yes, agree.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes.
Mr. Eldridge? Mr. Egan? Mr. George, yes. Motion passed 7-0. Thank you. Moving on to item number 15, discuss, consider, and act upon the first reading of ordinance 2022-22, approving an amendment to the municipal contract with the Republic Waste Services of Texas Limited for the collection of residential and commercial solid waste to extend the term 5 additional years and amend the rate adjustments. That be Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, staff is recommending a 5-year extension with our contract with Republic Services to provide solid waste and recycling services. The original contract provided for a 5-year base term and 1 5-year extension. That 5-year extension has been extended by 2 months. I'm sorry, that original 5-year base contract was extended by 2 months just because of some timing issues and some language and some contract details. Staff and town staff and Republic staff has agreed in concept that just amending our existing contract is probably the most efficient way to do this. There's really only 2 changes that you would be approving tonight if you chose to do so. That is obviously extending the term by 5 years and changing the rates, which will include a new definition of the CPI calculation, changing from the traditional definition of the CPI to a water sewer trash consumer price index. And that will vary from year to year. Year 1 of the 5-year extension, as it is proposed tonight, would include a 4.2% increase on both residential and commercial account rates. Currently, our 5-year contract requires a 1.5% CPI increase each year and a 3% increase for commercial customers each year. So those are really the 2 terms that are changing, is the CPI in addition to the term and the extension of the contract. We do have 2 representatives from Republic here tonight. One of the area general managers, Scott, is here, as well as Joanna, who has been our representative for the town of Sunnyvale and also believe some of our neighboring communities. And I hate to get off topic, but I do believe today is her last day, so she gets to work extra overtime on her last day at work. But Scott, as the general manager of that operation, I believe he oversees most of the Eastern Dallas County communities, and Scott will be stepping in the interim and working with us. So they're here as well. If you have any questions of our Republic service provider, they're here as well. So, and I'm happy to answer any more questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Scott, Joanna, do you have anything to add? And where you're going, by the way? Where are you going? Retiring or just moving on to something else?
Retiring. I wish I could retire. No, I am leaving for an opportunity to be the marketing and communications director at Trinity Valley Community College.
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you. I do want to say that it has been a pleasure working with you and the council and staff here in the town of Sunnyvale.
Jenna, would you mind adding your address also for the record?
Sure. My personal address?
The business address is good.
Sure. It's 1450 East Cleveland in Hutchins.
Thank you. That's for the record. Yeah, go ahead, Jenna.
Mr. Jones covered everything very well. This is just an amendment to the original contract to extend it for 5 years. We asked to change the CPI language for the price increase each year to more closely align with the items that affect our business. So the water sewer trash index covers things like steel and rubber and all of the things that, plastic that goes into the items that we use to do our business.
Joanna, thank you very much. Any questions for Joanna?
Thanks for all you've done for us. Appreciate you. Good luck in your new job.
Thank you.
Additional comments or questions? Joanna, it's great knowing you. Good luck with your future. Okay. Thanks for everything you've done for Sunnyvale. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Scott, you want to add anything, Scott? Okay. I'm going to ask for public comments. If anyone from the members of the audience would like to speak to the council, item number 15, you may do so at this time. No one is coming forward, so I'm going to close the public comments. Council, are there any discussions on item number 15? Okay, can I have a motion on 15, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Freeman, second by
Second.
you, Mr.
Second.
Clark, to approve ordinance 2022-22 as presented.
It's okay.
It was, sorry, motion made by Mr. Freeman, second by Allen to approve ordinance 2022-22 as presented. Everyone heard the motion and the additional discussions. All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 7-0. Council again, this is the first reading. This will be back in the consent agenda next council meeting. Thanks again, Scott. Moving on to item number 16, update related to the current water protection conservation measures. Mr. Creed?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is not something we bring up a lot, but I'm sure y'all are familiar with. We have a water conservation plan and drought contingency plan as part of the adopted ordinances of Sunnyvale. And so the town has an approved water conservation plan, which was by law or by contract, that largely mirrors North Texas's stages in what they do. The water conservation plan is a strategy or a combination of strategy for reducing the consumption of water, reducing the loss or waste of water, improving or maintaining the efficiency and the use of water. The current form of our document was passed back in 2011. Let me move this forward. It's not working. Is this working? How are you doing it? Okay, go to the next one. Okay, and stage 1 was voluntary. This is not the stage we're currently in. We have been perpetually in stage 2, but voluntary are where the customers of the town are requested to voluntarily limit their water. The voluntary restrictions the voluntary reductions would just be through education efforts and by the residents to curtail their water usage on their own. Next slide, please. Stage 2, and this is all the listing of the ordinance, which I'm not going to bore you by reading all of it, but this is the current stage where we are in. And stage 2 is where we require certain watering in certain zones on certain days, and we'll get into that a little bit later in one of the slides. But if I wanted to provide you with that information, this is what's currently in our conservation plan. Next slide. This is further notions of stage 2. It's just the requirements about irrigation, space, golf courses, things like this. We really don't have a lot of that, but we do have it in the ordinance. Next slide. Stage 3 would be mandatory compliance. We would go to this stage if North Texas demanded it per our contract. North Texas has not sent anything out explaining to us or telling us that they're ready to do this. The lake levels are getting to a level that they're concerned with yet, or anything like that. But I'm going to explain to you why I'm talking to you about this in the further following slides. But stage 3 would prohibit all watering and most outdoor use completely. Next slide. And this is further of stage 3. Talk about limited landscaping, washing things outdoors. It does provide for you to fill your pool back up to the top. Ironically, I noted that in there. Next slide. So here's the cause for why I brought this to you tonight. This is a year snapshot of our rainfall and our water usage. So you can see on the graph there that in June we had a record month. We pumped over 70 million gallons out of our pump station, which was record breaking. This month we pumped over 130 million, which was almost doubling our record breaking month last month. So currently we have 3 pumps at the pump station, and all 3 are running continuously from probably 10 p.m. until noon every day. So what we're wanting to do is we're going to have to start pushing out, because we are still in stage 2. I don't think we've had a lot of, since we've had so much growth, we haven't had pushed out a lot of information, and we've kind of been relaxed on allowing people to water whenever. And a lot of people are watering 5-6 days a week. Most people do tend to water within the restriction hours, but they are watering more than 2 days a week in their zone. So we'll go to the next slide. Any comments on this? I thought that was interesting. That last slide that's crazy. The next slide demonstrates the zones. This is as the current ordinance, how they're set up throughout the city. And it also, I know it's small to read there, but this is something that's available on our website that talks about the irrigation is restricted by the day, times, and the zones. Water usage for irrigation should be limited to 2 days per week. And the information is available on the town website at www.townofsunnyvale.org. It's under the water utility tab in water resources. Next slide, please. So moving forward, I want we're gonna try to have more visibility on social media, try to curtail some of this usage. I'm also adjusting some of the tower levels and how we run to bolster our amounts in storage during these peak demand times. We're going to start handing out public handouts with new accounts, try to help people be advised of what the current ordinance reads and the restrictions on watering. And then we also have the ability to put messages on bills, which I want to do that, send those out to remind the residents, any help they can give us, we'd certainly appreciate it. And then the next slide is, if y'all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Mr. Freeman?
My quick question is this: with our electronic new water meters that we have,
Yes, sir.
can we tell when someone's breaking these ordinances?
We could, yes, sir. We would have to
Decided
go
to go
account
that-
by account
Yeah, we
and look at it based on what zone they were in. Staff constraints are making it pretty hard to enforce water restrictions at night.
Yeah.
But mostly we need people. I think most people in Sunnyvale will want to help us.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I would say that your 5 to 6 nights of watering a night, I think those are very few and far between. I think most people try to stay within the couple times. But, all right, just curious.
I think the last notification was a few years back, if I remember correctly. So
Mhm.
I do remember Tuesday, Friday for me. I know many of the other folks don't fall because they forgot about it.
Yes, sir.
So yeah,
Yes,
it's
sir.
good to send that reminder.
Yes, sir.
Any comments or questions for Mr. Freeman? Okay. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 17, Mayor and Council request for future staff updates and agenda items.
I was just going to ask about committee meetings for events, the events committee. Are we still on track for meeting sometime soon? I guess that's more of a question than a statement.
What coming? Events coming. Yeah. We got everything coming in.
Right, we
Mr.
have-
Mark?
Yeah, we have a lot of events coming up for Thanksgiving Day trot and then Veterans Day. I think the two big ones that are very important. So thanks.
Yeah. Anything else, Mr. Freeman?
The only thing that I would bring up, because we've had lots of pipes bursting lately, is there anything proactively that we could do to kind of mitigate that so we don't have to deal with that maybe now or next summer? I mean, it just seems like this is becoming a
The
bigger and
perfect
bigger
time to
deal.
bring it up, right? Budget time is coming up, right? So I think Mr. Jones and I talked about it. I think he's working with the staff to come up with some any proactive measures, and I hope to see something in the budget if you need something.
Motion to adjourn to executive session.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Freeman, second by That's cool. That's cool. The recording is on. Okay, now time is 8:38. We are back in open session. I can confirm as a result of the executive session, no action needs to be taken. With that, council, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mr. Freeman, second by Finch to adjourn. All in favor signify. All opposed, motion passed 7-0. Thank you very much. Staff and the council appreciate
That's it,
everything.
Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.